Hey, Will Chandler back, Guardian Fury, as you know, and doing my second video of the night. Um, so I've thought a lot. Uh, the last recorded conversation I had with the elder, um, where we discuss a little bit of the Australian Royal Commission and Jeffrey Jackson's testimony, and he said from his perspective he didn't think that Brother Jackson had lied. And I found that very curious. And as you probably saw in the video, it because I had made some suppositions in my head about this guy being a little broader thinker and a little bit freer from the cult mind control. It threw me because that's where my mind was at, that he could see things outside of the regular Jehovah's Witness bubble. But it actually helped remind me that that wasn't the case. It was just a different level of being inside that bubble. And how could someone see that testimony and not see the blatant lie that was being told, the lies, multiple lies being told by Jeffrey Jackson in the Australian Royal Commission? So I guess then we have to go back to what is the definition of a lie. And here we come into word games. And high control groups often tend to redefine what words mean, and they also tend to make up their own words that mean something that outsiders won't understand, like the truth or the system of things, right? So let's go to the definition of a lie. Merriam-Webster's, it's online. To make would be to the one definition would be to make an untrue statement with intent to deceive. So that's broad, right? Your intent is to deceive with this statement. So that covers lies of omission and just straight up lies. That it's all encompassing, very straightforward, and how 99.9% of the world understands what a lie is. And another definition would be to create a false or misleading impression. And intuitively, to create a false or misleading impression is encompassed with to make an untrue statement with intent to deceive, right? Intuitively, you get that, but that extra definition is there. Kind of, it gives a. We all know that you can read something or look at something or hear what someone says and get different perceptions of that. So they seem to find it necessary in the dictionary that most of the world would accept that a lie would also be to create a false or misleading impression. So that would be encompassed with the first meaning of to make an untrue statement with intent to deceive. But why was that extra bit added? Like, think about that for a second. Because they're trying to get into definition and what words mean and how to translate what is being said, right? All right. Now, if we go to jw.org, we go into how do Jehovah's Witnesses, how does their theology, how does their leadership define a lie? So, if you go to the online library, you look in the insight on the scriptures, it's going to be in volume 2, and you look at what a lie is. It says initially the opposite of truth. Okay, I can agree with that. And that lying would be generally involvement of saying something that is false to a person who is entitled to know the truth. And that there would be an intent to deceive or injure the other person. So here's the key distinction in how a lie, the true definition of a lie, understood by 99.9% of humanity, You can take that infinity probably. Because there's actually quite a few Jehovah's Witnesses in my own feelings, think that they know what a lie is and what it encompasses. So, according to the Jehovah's Witness theology, I suppose, we could say that a lie is telling an untruth to someone that is entitled to know that truth. So that's a key distinction, right? A very important distinction. Someone that is entitled, someone that deserves, someone that is worthy of the truth. So, let's think about Jeffrey Jackson's testimony for a minute, right? They question him on corporal punishment. He dances around the question a number of times and then finally lies, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, about the acceptance of corporal punishment among Jehovah's Witnesses, both personally and institutionally, right? Merriam-Webster dictionary, he lies. Jehovah's Witness dictionary, the insight on the scriptures, Jehovah's Witness dictionary says he didn't lie because these Australian officials, they don't have an entitlement to the truth. They don't deserve the truth. They are not worthy of the truth. Why do I say that? Give me a minute. I'll get to that. So let's go to, let's see. I went to dictionary.com. I like these definitions, just the broadness of them and the different ways it was described. I got to back up a second. Sorry. It's getting late, but you also look at when Jeffrey Jackson, he was asked if the governing body is the sole mouthpiece of Jehovah on earth, if they are the only ones that Jehovah uses to speak, basically. Now, any Jehovah's Witness that knows the Jehovah's Witness theology would say, yes, the governing body is the mouthpiece, the channel by which God Almighty communicates with humanity. Now, the way he answered that was by definition of a lie, according to 99.9% of humanity. According to the Jehovah's Witness definition of what a lie is, and their insight on the scriptures, or their own dictionary, their own high control group definition of words, their personal definition of what words mean, according to that, he didn't lie because the Australian Royal Commission, these Australian authorities, run by the devil, because according to Jehovah's Witness theology, the governments of this world are under the rule of the devil, under the sway of the devil. It is the devil that controls them, the devil that's attacking them. Therefore, it's not a lie if you don't tell them the truth of the matter. It is not a lie if you deceive them, because they are not entitled. They are not worthy. They don't have the right heart condition to know the truth, to hear the real truth. But it's not a lie because they're not entitled to said thing. So, I think you get where I'm going with that. There's a couple other instances you can find in the Australian Royal Commission. And it would explain to me personally why this elder that seems reasonable on the surface would think that Mr. Jeffrey Jackson had not lied under oath. So let's go to what authority means, or the authorities, or who are the appropriate authorities. All right, so if we go to dictionary.com, and we look up authority, the plural being authorities, you're going to have the power to determine, to adjudicate. It's going to be the powers that reside in a person or persons that can settle disputes or issues, someone that has, or a group of people that have jurisdiction, the right to control, command, or determine. That would be under the first definition. You also have a power or right delegated or given. Jehovah's Witness theology, by God. All right? That's their authority according to Jehovah's Witness theology. That the appropriate authorities are those that have been delegated by God for this authority. A person or body of persons, governing body. Who are the governing body according to Jeffrey Jackson? The guardians of doctrine. G, guardians. O, of doctrine. D, the governing body is God. Okay, so that was a side note. So a person or body of persons in whom authority is vested, such as a governmental organization or a theocracy or a high control group. So usually, let's see, for authorities, in general usage would be those having legal power to make or enforce a law. That would be governmental. Here's a cool one: an accepted source of information, advice. So an accepted source of information or advice. Now, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, the only accepted source, channel of information or advice is the governing body. That's it. And it could also be a quotation or a citation from such a source. Jehovah's Witness literature. So, why do I bring all this up? What about Jehovah's Witnesses and child abuse? Now, in their May 2019 study Watchtower, it asks the questions about whether or not elders comply with secular laws about reporting said allegations of child abuse to secular authorities. So it talks about whether, if the laws exist in that area, that they endeavor to comply with secular laws. Now, how many times as a Jehovah's Witness did you hear the term to report things to, or did you hear the term appropriate authorities? Now, the general Jehovah's Witness might not hear that as much. But when you go back, you read the Elder's Manual, look at some of the literature, and you see that it says the appropriate authorities. You can see the appropriate authorities being used in the Australian Royal Commission. Now, Jehovah's Witness, definition of a lie, Insight on the Scriptures, definition of a lie, it wasn't a lie. Definition of a lie under Merriam-Webster's and 99.9% of humanity, it is a lie. Because who are the authorities? Those that are the lawgivers, basically, right? Those that are empowered by God, according to Jehovah's Witness theology. So, when it says that in the Elder's Manual, for instance, depending which version, you look at, depending on which Elder's letters you look at, it's going to state that they report to the appropriate authorities. Again, let's go back to authorities. A person or body of persons in whom authority is given or vested, such as a government, the power, it's going to be a group of people that have the power to determine or adjudicate or settle issues and disputes. They're going to have jurisdiction on a matter, the right to control, the right to command, the right to determine. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, that is the governing body. That is jw.org. That is the headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, right? So, and interestingly, this article of the May 2019 study edition, It's called Love and Justice in the Face of Wickedness. Could it have a more ironic title? I don't think so. I lived this, and I don't think it's more ironic. So, do they report to the appropriate authorities? Now, when that was said to the Australian Royal Commission, thinks, okay, they're saying the 99.9% of people that would see that would think they're talking about law enforcement. But why is there a clear distinction made in this study article, May 2019 study edition about child abuse? Why is there a clear distinction made between secular laws, law enforcement, and the appropriate authorities? Or in the Elders Manual, the appropriate authorities, or in some of their literature and Elders letters, the appropriate authorities. According to Jehovah's Witness theology, who are the appropriate authorities? Locally, it's the elders. Actually, let's go smaller. In the family group, it's the man, be it the father, or if the father's not around, the baptized son. I know, I lived this. I was an authority over my own damn mother. Really? Come on, man. Like I was 15, 14 and 15 as a regular pioneer, and I was one of the only guys doing it. I actually can't think of any other male regular pioneers in the two congregations I was in at the time. So it was always me and a bunch of sisters, and I was an authority over them. So family group, it's the male that's baptized, right? You go higher than that, it's going to be the elders locally. You go beyond that, it's going to be the branch. Beyond that, you go all the way up. The governing body is where it ends in Jehovah's Witness theology. They are the appropriate authorities. So there are certain items delegated locally versus regionally versus worldwide, right? For child abuse, they have to contact the branch because that's the appropriate authority. Now, if they considered the appropriate authority those in a right position to rule or judge to be law enforcement, if they considered it law enforcement, then they would call them first. But the appropriate authorities that they notify are their religious leaders. That is who, to Jehovah's Witnesses, is the appropriate authority. It's pretty easy to prove that. So this whole thing, I know I stayed silent this summer about this article. I haven't talked about this appropriate authorities BS. It's something that I've kind of had my views on for many years now. I imagine other people have done videos about it or at least talked about it in some form or fashion. But this is something I've seen for a long time, right? Again, nothing special here. There's nothing new under the sun. I'm not the first person to think of this. I'm sure you can find plenty of other sources and evidence and just literature alone that will get you to this conclusion. So, I watched a video done by Jude 3 and Laura 2, right? Where they're talking about Jesus being Michael the Archangel. And I kind of chuckled to myself because comes into the word games that Jehovah's Witnesses play. And not intentionally by the rank and file, but completely intentionally, in my opinion, by the appropriate authorities. So let's go to the Jehovah's Witness dictionary and look up archangel. So an archangel in the Insight on the Scriptures, it would be in volume 1, it's a prefix in archie, chief, principal, right? It's going to imply that they are like a captain of angels, right? That's not in their wording. So here's the key. Archangel is never found in plural. This is quoting from the Insight on the Scriptures now. So they bring up 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and Jude 9. So in speaking on the preeminence of the archangel, they say, and the authority of his office, they claim it references Jesus, right? I want to get in it. Okay. So they say because archangel in Greek, because archangeli, my Greek might be a little off, would be a Greek term very closely adapted into English, okay? And yes, in the Greek, it is singular. Context matters. Well, I was going to go to something. So let's go to... That's funny. My archangel scriptures disappeared. So let's go to archangel scriptures in the Bible. So we go to 1 Thessalonians 4:16. So in the NASB it says, "For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel," singular. I agree. It's singular. "And with the trumpet of God." That trumpet singular too. Singular trumpet. "And the dead in Christ will rise first." Okay, so we're talking about the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of an archangel. Okay, it's not plural. I get it. So think of when you say to someone in English or talk about someone in English, then that person has the voice of an angel. Unless they have multiple personality disorder, you're probably not going to say they have the voices of an angel because you're singularly talking about that person. Now, let's say it's a choir or whatever, and you might say they have the voices of the angels or the voices of angels. That's not a term I'm familiar with, but when you're singularly talking about one person, then the following words are singular. It's simple grammatics, right? So then let's go to Jude. What is it? Jude 9, I think. My computer's acting up. Give me a second. Yeah. So Jude 1:9. Obviously it's a 1 because Jude has one chapter. NASB again, but Michael the archangel, singular. Michael being a singular being, therefore archangel is singular. Grammatics, not a hard sell. So, yes, in Greek, in the New Testament, archangel is used in the singular fashion. Here's the problem. What happens, and let me go back to Jude 1:9. Let's go to the Greek real quick. Archangelos. Yeah, it's singular. You can look at the grammatics on it. It's pretty easy. So let's go to Daniel 10:13. NASB again. "But the prince of the kingdom of Persia was withstanding me for 21 days. Then behold, Michael," now this is going to be originally in Hebrew, right? So it wouldn't apply to the Jehovah's Witness dictionary of archangel. So Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. Michael, one of the chief princes. Now in Jewish tradition, there are at a minimum 7 named archangels. Minimum 7. Funny to think about that number, right? So what happens when we go to the Hebrew of Daniel 10:13? Directly translated, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 20 and 1 days, and behold, Michael, one of the princes. So let's look that word up real quick. So princes, Sar, it's going to be chieftain, chief, ruler, official, captain, or prince. Pretty self-explanatory, I think, right? The prince is chief, first, chief, or former. Like, don't think of former as in before. So one of the chief princes, one of the chief angels, one of the, let's say in U.S. military lingo, one of the chiefs of staff, the top generals, right? It's pretty easy to make that connection. So here you have, in referencing First Thessalonians and Jude, you bring that back to biblical reference in Daniel, and you see multiple archangels. But they don't draw that connection in the Jehovah's Witness dictionary. Again, so look at the word games being played. It's a bunch of shenanigans. But I got to tell you, when I told that younger elder I studied with last spring about that, and one day it slightly got brought up in conversation with when I was taking him and his wife out to dinner one day. And man, when I brought that up a little bit, he got so nervous and he changed the subject immediately. And I saw what was happening because I had told him and showed him Daniel 10:13 and showed him that there's more than one archangel, and he was desperate for his wife not to hear that. Desperate for her not to hear that, because apparently that's faith shaking. So if there's more than one archangel, does that affect your faith as a Jehovah's Witness? Are you thrown about on the waves? Is it turbulence that just completely ruins you in your faith? Well, maybe there's something wrong with your faith. Maybe you should stop playing word games. Stop letting these men play word games with you, right? Just a thought there. Anyway, I'm a little bit fired up tonight about this. Not a whole lot, just a little bit of emotion, a little bit more emotion, I think, in my last two videos than I usually show. But yeah. So this video is almost 30 minutes. I think that's enough for now. I think y'all get the picture. And again, this goes into word games, false translation, people deceiving others, right? Wake up is all I got to say. Share this knowledge with other people. This is nothing original from me. Like, this is stuff readily available to everyone. So I hope you all are having a good night. Take it easy.